I'm Hillary Hendershot, your host, and this is Profit Boss Radio, episode 98. Profit Boss Radio is your weekly wealth mastermind. Profit Boss is also a community and a movement for women who are ready to take control of their money, break the glass ceiling, and give ourselves permission to finally have enough. Want the secrets of wealth to be yours? This is the place. I'm Hillary Hendershot. I'm a certified financial planner running a leading advisory firm for women, and I'm sharing with you real stories from real life and real women who are making it happen. Forget Wall Street. Let's do this, ladies. Good morning, Profit Boss. We're here today talking with Aaron Hendon. He is the author of Shortchanged by Shortcuts, 44 Surprising Ways People Rip Themselves Off When Buying or Selling Their Home. Great topic for a Profit Boss. Aaron is, first of all, a previous guest and a friend of Profit Boss Radio. He's also a Seattle Realtor, real estate investor, author, educator, and speaker. He's the managing partner of Christine & Company, a Seattle Magazine awarded 5-star real estate agent, winning team for the past 5 years, and individual rising star in Seattle real estate winner this year. Aaron is here to help us understand the real estate transaction process and how to make the most of it. Welcome, Aaron.
Thanks, Hillary. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I am really excited because my interview with economist Dan Ariely is one of the most popular episodes of Profit Boss Radio ever. And in it, he talked about how a lot of times our brains lead us to make bad choices. And this field of study has come to be known as behavioral economics. And a lot of it comes down to these cognitive biases we suffer. In your book, you talk a lot about heuristics, which are the decision frameworks we use to make decisions. And to put it bluntly, when a human being looks at the world, sometimes we see it incorrectly. And your book includes many references to these. So, in fact, I started to think, is Aaron vying for a second career as an economist? But you make it clear in the book you're not.
No, I'm really not. Nor am I making a claims that I understand it. You know, there are certainly people that understand it that would be able to look at my book and go, okay, this you got wrong. This you got wrong. Now you got the total,
it's a rudimentary view.
Yes. It's a personal workmanlike view of what I've learned from Dan Ariely's books and from, other books of similar nature where Dan Ariely got his stuff from. I've studied some of that, but it's a very workmanlike view of it. I don't pretend that it's a discourse on behavioral economics.
Okay. So it's not an economics textbook. Thank goodness.
No.
All right. So what got you interested in cognitive biases?
Well, honestly, this whole thing got started because whenever I go to a listing appointment, an appointment where I have an opportunity to win the job of listing someone's property, I had never once been asked by the seller, how over average do I sell houses for? And just shocked me. It was shocking. I barely ever get asked anything, as a matter of fact, or anything relevant. It's all just, do they like me? Do they know me? Do they trust me? It's got nothing to do with my track record. There's no framework in which someone interviews a realtor. Like, I used to work at Burger King when I was 18 or 19. And, you work at Burger King, you get interviewed. There's a set of questions they ask you, 7, 8, 10 questions that they ask everybody. This doesn't happen when someone's going to buy or sell their house.
So you saw people not interviewing you and you thought, hey, I should tell people how to interview.
Yeah, it's like, this is insane. This is insane. People are burning money because they hire the wrong person. And if the deal doesn't go horribly poorly, like if they don't get ripped off blatantly, they think it went great.
So let's teach people how to think about how a real estate transaction should go, what their agent should be doing for them. Let's kind of start from the beginning, take my listeners down a path from beginning to end. So let's say someone's considering selling their home. What should they be thinking? What should they do first?
Well, I think probably is, a good idea would be to get grounded in reality. Or how much is my home worth? Because to be able to sell your home, you want to know, first of all, when you sell your home, what is it that you want? When you sell your home, what are the major goals you have in selling it? What do you want? So I get clear about that. And for you, what would it be? Just generally, almost always, it's the same three things.
What are those things?
They want to sell their house for the most money. I want to get the most money I can possibly get for my house. And I want to do it in the least time, or at least the time frame that I want to get it done in. And I want it done with the least hassle. Most money, least time, least hassle. Those are the criteria that almost everyone, if they thought about it, would come up with. So you want to find someone who's got a track record of delivering that.
Okay.
Most money, least time, right?
So start to look for an agent and be asking, how do you perform on these three metrics? Or if there are other metrics that are more important to you, what are those?
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so get a goal in mind and then start referencing the people you're interviewing and interview multiple people. You know, get 5, 6 people that you can see, and then you can begin to get, oh, okay. And it's not as big a hassle as people think it is. You know, most people don't ask those kinds of questions or don't take the time because they don't know what to say. And so their kid's soccer coach is probably not going to rip them off. So I'm just going to hire my kid's soccer coach. Or, you know, the nice lady I met at the school luncheon is, you know, I see her signs all over town, so I'm sure she's fine. She's as good as anybody else. You know, so that's the depth at which people generally interview, and I think that's a major mistake.
Okay, so we're sort of talking around this idea of the real estate agent interview. Do you have a list of interview questions in the book, or does it get that specific?
Yeah, it does. So there's 7 questions that I recommend people ask, and you know, that would actually be a good giveaway for people if they wanted to, Hillary. We can put in the show notes and give people an email template of those 7 questions. So you could send those questions out to the people you're interviewing and get 6, 7 responses and have almost no effort.
Right,
you know?
because it sort of puts it on the vying agent's plate.
And how appropriate is that?
Perfect. So let's do that. Let's put those questions in the show notes and people can use that as a resource. And actually, I love the idea of, you know, first reach out to the person whose advertising you've seen for years, but ask people on nextdoor.com for a reference. Ask your friends in the neighborhood for a reference. Maybe call that guy whose picture is on the shopping cart at the grocery store.
Totally. Get 5 or 6 people, you know, and then you'll see their performance. You'll get to see how much over asking price they get. And in some markets, you know, in Seattle or where you live in San Jose, you could put a cardboard box on the street and get over asking price, right? It's not
true. You could have multiple cash offers.
Yeah, it's just in a second, right? But the question is, what's the average in your area? Because there is an average. There's always an average. And then there are people that perform above it, and there's always people that perform below it. That's what averages do.
How can they prove that they're giving you the right information?
Okay, that's a little trickier because there's no public resource for that. So one way to do it is you could actually ask the agents to provide you their actual printout from the multiple listing service over the last 12 months.
Okay.
You could say, could you provide me your track record of the last 12 months? I'd like to see your listings over the last 12 months. And they should be able to print them out and just give them to you.
That's great. Okay, good. I like that my listeners are going to be able to know how to actually make them put their money where their mouth is. Because, you know, real estate is kind of a cowboy industry. And you mentioned in the book that there's really low barriers to entry. My experience is there's a core of people who do good business with high integrity, but there's a lot of other stuff going on.
I don't want this to be known like, I'm a realtor that hates realtors. I don't hate realtors. And I don't think there's a lot of dishonest realtors. I do not think that. I have rarely run into someone who I felt was dishonest, but I have often run into people that I am shocked that person is getting paid the same amount I am.
Well, let's talk about how much you get paid because, I mean, and I think this might be another heuristic, but given 5 or 6 choices to make, a human being is going to compare the features, benefits, and costs that they know about, and pending other information, they're going to want to make a decision based on price. So if I interview 6 agents and one of them offers me a discount, I'm going to be inclined to go with that guy.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the cost of selling a house, how to think about that. What do you think about discount brokers? What do you think about not using an agent?
Yeah, great questions. Really good questions, and all valuable and viable and appropriate questions to ask. So there are definitely times where And in certain markets and in certain equations where using a realtor would make no sense. You're burning money to use a realtor under certain occasions. I rarely find that there's a occasion where using a discount broker makes sense, because if you think about what a discount says about the thing, in business, not real estate, in any business, a discount indicates either there's an overstock or they're going to make this up on volume, right? It's a loss leader in some way, or they have some secret way to get lower overhead, something like that, right? That's it. So they can offer a discount. Amazon makes it up on volume,
right?
Costco makes it up on volume. So if you're okay with being that supersized toilet roll and you're one of many, and fine, then the discount might work for you. But that's one thing. And the second place a discount is offered is when the market will not pay full price for the service, whatever it is. It's an overstock or it's cheaper, it's made in Japan, whatever. It's which is now, sorry, that just gave away my age, right? When I was younger, made in Japan indicated, right? As a child, now made in Japan is better. It's made in the U.S., whatever.
I remember that.
Right. But that's a discount, right? So if you think about a discount broker, the easiest way for me to dispel the myth of a discount broker is if that agent, that human being, that actual human being you were talking to could get full price for their services, why would they be offering you a discount?
Right.
If someone would pay them full price, why would they give it to you for less? The answer's got to be because no one would pay them full price. So that gets cleared up in the track record piece, by the way. If you look at their track record, I promise you 99 times out of 100, the discount broker produces less revenue for the seller than a full price agent. They've already demonstrated their inability to negotiate their own commission. It's very unlikely they're going to be able to negotiate for your money if they can't even do their own. So a discount broker doesn't make a lot of sense but again, the interview should bear that out. If they show you 12 months of sales and they're getting better than the 3% broker's getting, fabulous, great, then that person may be onto something. I just haven't seen it.
Right. And I agree with that. And I always say financial services is not, and real estate agent is a financial service. Consultative service is not something you want at a discount.
Yeah.
It just doesn't go that way. Now, you mentioned there are times when it's burning money to use a real estate agent. What are those times?
Well, if you, Hillary, were going to sell your house to a friend or family member, right? And it was just you and them, and you knew them and you didn't need to extract the most money. You were satisfied with a price the two of you had negotiated, and it was, one of those deals, then, you got a good escrow office and a good title company and a decent lawyer and you're done. Or maybe you pay one agent for both sides.
Just
something like that.
Contract.
Yeah, just to handle the contract, If you're not going to put it on the open market, you don't need a realtor.
Okay.
Perfect. Like that.
I understand. So the listing price it's 6%. Is that nationwide?
It's a generally accepted standard. There's some legal thing about you can't promote it like that. It's a negotiated, but that's the standard commission is 3% per side.
Okay. And the person who sells their home pays the entire 6%. The listing agent takes 3% and the buyer's agent takes 3%. Is that right?
Well, yes. And I think it's duplicitous to say the seller pays for it because I think the buyer pays for it.
Say more about that.
Yeah, because look, who's writing the check?
The buyer is spending the money.
And every month for 30 years, they're going to write a check for the full amount, for the $500,000, let's say. Right? Regardless of how much goes into the seller's pocket, that $500,000 comes out of the buyer's checkbook every month for 30 years. What the seller did with it has nothing to do with the buyer. The buyer is literally paying for that.
Right. I mean, the consumer pays for everything. This is why when people talk about things like free healthcare, free education, it's like it's not free. Someone's paying for it.
That's right. Someone's paying for it. I just think about it like this. The buyer's actually paying for it. The seller has a price in mind. Right, what they want to get for their house or what they're willing to sell their house for, right? If you just think about how price is determined in life, right? Price is the amount a buyer is willing to pay. The buyer sets the price, and the seller gets to say if that's a price they're willing to accept, right?
Yes.
Okay. Sellers don't get to say the price of something. Buyers get to say the price of something. Sellers get to say it's worth it or not to sell it. at that price.
All right. So standard fee is 6%, but that's going to, as a buyer, as a seller, you're going to have to either subtract that from your purchase price or add it to your listing price in your thinking. Okay.
That's right.
So now you've picked a real estate agent, you've interviewed, you've picked a real estate agent. Are there heuristic things that can come up and cause problems as you're setting the listing price?
Totally. I mean, if you look at what, you got confirmation bias is huge for people, right? And Dan Ariely talks about the endowment effect, that things you own are more valuable than things you don't own. Just because you own them, you consider them more valuable. And that's why markets exist, because the things people own are more valuable. My money is more valuable to me than your house, and your house to you is more valuable to you than money. And then
it's my family house. All my memories are here. 25 years we've been here.
I understand.
6 kids born in the kitchen.
I know, with the little lines on the door jamb. And here's the mantra, okay? And people hate me for this, but this is the mantra. Nobody wants to buy your home.
They want to buy their home.
They want to buy their home.
Right.
They don't want to buy your home. It's a house to them. They don't want your memories. They're not buying your memories. They're not worth anything. They barely want your updates, frankly. They don't want your carpet choice. They don't like your taste. They want a house in your neighborhood with some of those amenities and like that at a price they can afford, that they can turn into their own home. So all those emotional components that you're putting into the pricing, no one else is valuing that. The buyer's not valuing that.
And that's why agents recommend staging a home, because shoppers want to see a blank canvas.
Yes, they want to see something that they can imagine they're building a home in.
Right.
And it's really critical.
So most times, I bet when you're setting the price with a new seller, they want the price higher than you're recommending. But I imagine if they want to move quickly, sometimes they want to lowball it.
It depends. Sometimes from my perspective, sometimes people are reasonable, sometimes they're not. But, at the end of the day, how a house gets priced is you look at what the market, because the market is what's going to set the price, what the market, just two different aspects. One is what the market has paid already in the recent past for houses like yours, meaning size, location, age, condition, like yours, similar, comparable, hence the word comps, right? What that market has been willing to pay. You can see the evidence of what that market has been willing to pay. The other piece is, so you got an idea of what the market was willing to pay, and then you want to look at the competition. Is there any? Is there a lot?
And that's inventory, nearby inventory. Okay.
Exactly. What other places like this exist near you? And how quickly are those selling? What's the demand like? There's the supply and the demand. So you got the track record, and you look at the current supply and demand, and in there, a seasoned agent will be able to read the market appropriately and come up with a price with you. I mean, I usually let my own sellers set the price. I show them the houses that have sold, and I say, is your house more like this one or this one? It's more like this one. Okay, well, this one sold for this. In your heart, how much would you pay for your house compared to this house? If you had money in your pocket, how much more, and you get to work it out. You've got to shift your attention, because look, one of the big premises or the suggestions in my book is, if you shifted your context, and I know you talk about this all the time on Profit Boss, Hillary, it's why you and I get along so well, because if you shift your mindset about what you're doing, you're not selling your home, you're the CEO of a company that's selling a commodity into a crowded marketplace. Mm-hmm. You're running a business here. If you were running a business, you would interview agents. You just wouldn't hire the first one as a CEO. You don't just hire the first guy that walks through the door. You interview people. And if you're the CEO that's selling a commodity, which you are, it's a commodity, it's a house. You didn't just invent some new widget that you have to convince people that it's valuable. It's a house. They know what it is. It's a commodity, right? There's lots of them. And you're actually competing against people that could remodel, refinance, rent. You're competing against a lot of different things besides just buying, right?
So you want to be more business-like, less emotional. This is your first act of trust. You've hired this agent. You're now a partnership. He or she is your guide, and you've got to let that agent's opinion, professional, experienced opinion, sway you.
That's right. Consultant. You've hired a consultant. You've hired a CMO CFO or a CMO
Yes.
at least.
Yeah, exactly.
At least a CMO.
Part CMO, part CFO for sure.
That's right. That's right. And they're a consultant. They're, like that.
All right. So let's take an offer situation. You get an offer, and are there offers that you as the agent say to your seller, this is a lowball offer, this is not an offer we should consider? Or do you try to kind of make everything possibly work?
Well, it depends. If it's a lowball offer, then I would, I call it as I see it. We have a...
Why do people do that?
What?
Make
Put in
lowball offers? Yeah.
Well, because
On the off chance?
The off chance, or they're resetting the negotiating framework from where you were all the way down. I mean, it's a standard negotiating tactic to throw in an offer that's so far out of the realm that you readjust the framework upon which the negotiation is happening.
Right. And so,
right?
and that
You
brings
move
in the
center.
potential for anchoring bias.
Exactly. So now you've shifted the center of the negotiation lower. It depends. Again, supply and demand. If you don't need that buyer right there, if you've been on the market for a week, it's probably not useful. It depends. You got to read the market.
Okay. How about heuristic flaws or cognitive biases that might come into play during a multiple offer situation? I don't know if multiple offers are as common in other places as they are here, but that's basically all we get here in the San Francisco Bay Area. It must be exciting, but also it must be rife with emotion, that period of time for the seller.
Yeah. So in Seattle, we have the same market, and it is not common in the rest of the country. I mean, it's not radically uncommon, but it's not normal. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, you wind up with it just depends, again, how many offers and where they are. And I like to take all that away from my client. And I do all the negotiating. Client doesn't see anything except the post-negotiated offers. These are the 5 offers that are after I've spoken to them all 4 or 5 times, and they've all come up in price. And then it's pretty obvious, which one meets the criteria for most money, least time, right? Which one's most likely to close.
Oh, that's great. You keep pulling it through that framework.
Yeah, exactly. Which one meets the stated criteria here?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that's not always the highest price offer.
It's not always the highest priced offer, because it's not about getting the best offer. It's about getting paid. And you got to have an offer that's going to close. And sometimes it's, important for the seller is it closes on time, and it has less, contingencies. It has less ways of escaping from the offer. So those are all really important aspects for the seller to negotiate.
Right, because there are multiple facets of every offer. It's not just the price. There's other facets of the contract that are relevant. And now we're coming up on the end of our time, so I want to ask a few questions. Well, first, actually, I want to ask a few questions that you pose in the book just to kind of whet people's appetite of the kind of information that's available in the book. Let's talk about asymmetry of information in the deal. You make a big deal about this in the book. Can you talk more about the importance of knowing that there is asymmetry and how your clients can minimize the negative impacts of that?
Yeah, sure. The term I stole from Daniel Pink. I love that idea. It's really sort of where this whole seed got planted, was that the agent knows how the deal is supposed to go. The agent knows all the different steps that are going to happen, and the consumer generally does not. So, in other words, a seasoned agent, a smart agent, a good agent would know that, an offer from this bank is less likely to close than an offer from a mortgage lender, and that's something that they should be counted on to steer you toward. Do you know that? There's all sorts of little nuances in the deal that a seasoned agent will, in fact, be able to steer you, guide you. I definitely consider myself a consultant more than a salesperson. And so there are those things. And I think what people, again, this is the context of be worthwhile creating before you got into the deal, was just to notice people don't like to look stupid. I don't think that's a radical thing to say.
Not shocking.
Okay. And so asking questions, nothing makes you seem stupider than asking questions you're supposed to know the answer to.
Such as?
Well, just anything. Like the metaphor, the analogy I use in the book was, when my car needed a new serpentine belt. I'm a man. And in American culture, I'm supposed to know what I'm supposed to know about cars. My mechanic says a serpentine belt needs to go. And I don't have the freedom to say, I don't know what a serpentine belt is, man. You got to tell me. I don't have that. I'm a guy. I'm supposed to know what it is, right? I have to nod and smile, right? My wife doesn't have that constraint about a serpentine belt in a car.
And she's like, yo, dude, what's a serpentine belt?
Right, so I had to Google it to find out because I can't admit to the mechanic I don't know what it is. But real estate is one of those things that I think people think they're supposed to know all about by themselves. You know, they relate to it like they're supposed to know, so they don't ask questions.
So you find people don't ask the right questions.
Yeah, they don't. Well, besides that thing I started with, about how much over asking price do you get? What's your average? The difference between earnest money and down payment is unclear for people sometimes. How agents get paid is unclear sometimes for certain people. What an escrow officer does is unclear for certain people. What does a title? What does this mean when it says this on title? What are the different kinds of deeds? All the different aspects of the deal.
You want to educate yourself.
Yeah, you must. And, going on WebMD is great, but it doesn't make you a doctor.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
And going on Zillow doesn't make you a realtor.
Yeah, I remember at one point in the transaction my husband and I did last year, if listeners of the show know that we bought in San Jose last year, and we were interviewing 2 mortgage lenders, and my agent emailed me and said, well, we don't want you to have 2 mortgage lenders. It'll slow things down and it's frowned upon and you should really pick one. And I stopped and I said, what does my agent care if I'm interviewing 2 mortgage lenders? And I asked him, I said, are you getting paid? He had referred me to one of the mortgage lenders in question. And I said, do you have any stake in the deal? And he backed way off. He said, oh, absolutely not. I'm sorry. I was like, well, but I wanted to know.
Yeah,
so
good.
You got to ask the questions.
That's right. And, I don't know what his motivation was for saying that, right? I always think it's fine to interview multiple people, but when you pick one, you got to pick one.
Right.
And then you don't go back and forth after you've picked one.
Right.
And that is important. And I got opinions about big banks and Rocket Mortgage. Oh, my God, don't get me started. So there's all kinds of pitfalls that, if you hired a good realtor, they're your consultant, they're your guide, that's your partner through the deal. And your mortgage lender is your partner through that side of the deal.
Right.
Through the financial side of the deal. And that's what you're paying for,
And there's a lot more that could go wrong with the real estate deal than just getting a lower price than the maximum you could have in any version of reality. Because ultimately, people don't know this, but if someone buys your house and the contract wasn't written correctly, they can come back and sue you.
Totally.
If you get sued, it's $20,000 just to lawyer up before anybody decides if you did anything wrong.
That's right.
So think about that. Okay, we're tight on time here, so I want to let you go, but I just want to thank you so much for being here. Remind my listeners, pick up a copy of Aaron's book. Yeah, so you can get the book on Amazon. I'm sure everyone knows where that is. Shortchanged by Shortcuts on Amazon. Or you can go to my website and get this. Actually, that's where they can go get the 7 questions, right? That is actually already on my website. Okay. That's rationalrealestate.pro, and you can get the 7 questions right there. And then you could also just go pick up the book on Amazon. So there you go. Perfect. We will link to your real estate and the buy link for the book in the show notes, and I'll put it in the Profit Boss Facebook group. Aaron Hendon, thank you so much for being here and sharing your real estate savvy. Hillary, thank you so much. I love you. I love being on the show, and I really do love our partnership and our friendship outside of this. So it's a thrill. It's a pleasure. Thanks, Aaron. Thank you for listening to this episode of Profit Boss Radio. If you liked it, share it with an artist or creative that you love. And whether you're a painter or a mathematician, may you have all the freedom and prosperity you